1963, Jason and the Argonauts set sail on a cinematic odyssey unlike any other. Produced by Charles H. Neer, helmed by Don Chaffee, written by Beverly Cross, and shot largely on location in Italy with a budget of around $3 million, the film blended scenic Mediterranean landscapes with mythic spectacle. Soaring above it all was Bernard Herrmann's thunderous score. A symphonic force that made every clash of men and monsters feel truly epic. But the real magic came from Ray Harryhausen's creatures. His stop-motion artistry transformed ancient myths into living, breathing nightmares and wonders. Even today, these monsters remain benchmarks of cinematic imagination, proof that when myth is filtered through patience, craft and vision, it becomes timeless spectacle. And, just for fun, I'll be talking about the creatures in my own order, a little internal ranking that peels back the mythic roots and the painstaking craft that immortalized them on film. The ruins tremble with shrieks. Two-winged demons descend upon the blind seer Phineas, their claws tearing at his food and clothes, their cries echoing like divine punishment. Yep, it's those annoying mofos, the Harpies. In Greek legend, Harpies were storm spirits sent by Zeus to torment wrongdoers, snatchers that appear as creatures with women's heads, claws and wings. In the Argonautica, they plagued King Phineas until the winged sons of Boreas drove them away. Harryhausen reimagines them as gargoyle-like monsters, swooping and shrieking in one of the film's signature set pieces. In the film, the Harpies torment Phineas, silencing his prophetic voice, ensuring the god's secrets remain hidden. Jason's courage is tested, not in battle, but in the act of trapping these divine punishers. Behind the scenes, actors were filmed swatting at empty air among the ruins of the Temple of Hera in Paestum. That's in the province of Salerno within the Campania region of Italy. Harryhausen later animated the Harpies frame by frame, suspending them on wire rigs to control wing positions and simulate swooping attacks. You can see part of the wire rig in the screenshot here. Miniature sets were composited with live action, while their shrieks were crafted from distorted animal cries and mechanical effects. Harryhausen often remarked that winged creatures were the hardest to animate. Every flap had to look natural, every dive timed to the actor's reactions. The trickiest part was actually manually posing individual threads of a miniature net frame by frame, so they would realistically drape over the moving creatures. This required perfectly synchronizing the weighted fabric with the Harpies' flapping wings while concealing the thin wires that kept the models suspended in flight. The Harpies remain a chilling reminder that not all monsters are there to slay or indeed be slain. Some exist to torment, to punish, and to remind mortals of their place beneath the gods. The golden fleece glimmers in the shadows, but before Jason can claim it, a seven-headed serpent coils into view. Each head hisses, each eye gleams as the monster slithers inexorably towards our hero. In the myth, Jason actually squares off against the Colchian dragon, a sleepless beast that Medea lulls into a deep slumber using herbal potions and spells in some versions of the story. It's actually Heracles, with the help of his nephew Iolaus, who defeats the Hydra of Lerna, cauterizing its necks to prevent the heads from regenerating. Harryhausen borrowed the Hydra for Jason's cinematic outing, adapting it as a guardian of the fleece. Its death would sow the teeth that gave rise to the skeleton army, creating a mythological bridge between serpent and soldier. Its aim in the film is simple yet absolute: to guard the golden fleece and annihilate any who dare approach. The Hydra is not just an obstacle though, it is the god's sentinel, a test of Jason's resolve before the true climax. Behind the scenes, Harryhausen described the Hydra as a nightmare of coordination. Each head had multiple joints, meaning 7 necks to animate simultaneously. Here's a clip of the master explaining the challenges he faced.
There were many times when I regretted even thinking of the Hydra for the film. He presented so many animation problems that I didn't anticipate. Number one, if the telephone rang and I was in the midst of animation, I would forget sometimes whether this head was going forward or backwards, and this head going up or down, and the various other problems with the other heads. It became quite confusing.
Actor Todd Armstrong had to rehearse the fight as though the Hydra were really present. using marks on the ground and cues from the crew to know where each head would be animated later. This meant his sword swings and movements had to be carefully and consistently timed. Harryhausen then matched every strike and recoil frame by frame at Shepperton Studios. Meanwhile, Bernard Herrmann's score slithers beneath the sequence, accentuating the menace of each head's movements. The stop-motion effects that bring the Hydra to life are simply breathtaking. Its fluidity and constant movements go a long way into making you believe there's actually life in this gigantic slithering serpent. And that is why it remains one of Ray Harryhausen's greatest and most complex creations. The skeletons are inspired by the Spartoi, a Greek legend that play a part in Jason's trial of strength in the Argonautica. In the myth, Jason yokes a pair of fire-breathing bulls and uses them to plow a field and sow it with dragon's teeth, from which sprout fully formed warriors. Harryhausen cleverly adapted this myth, linking the Hydra's teeth to the skeletons, creating the aforementioned mythological bridge between Jason's quest for the Golden Fleece and the climactic battle. Of course, the thrilling sword fight between Sinbad and the skeleton warrior in the seventh voyage of Sinbad was a prototype. Harryhausen went one better, or is that 7 better, in Jason and the Argonauts. So, 7 skeleton warriors rise from the earth, summoned by the teeth of the slain Hydra. They advance on Jason and his men in a relentless, coordinated attack. Bernard Herrmann's score pounds in sync to the skeleton's march. The sequence lasts only about 3 minutes, but it remains one of the most iconic stop-motion battles in cinema history. The skeleton fight was filmed at Shepperton Studios, but the live-action swordplay had been shot a year earlier in Faracchio near Palinuro, Italy. That's roundabout here. Actors rehearsed and performed elaborate fight choreography, first against numbered stuntmen, then against empty air, swinging swords and shields at invisible opponents. Harryhausen then spent 4.5 months animating the skeletons frame by frame. Here's a clip of the master explaining the process himself.
You have 5 appendages on each skeleton, so that means 7 times 5 is 35. You have to make 35 moves when you have 7 skeletons on the screen for 1 frame of film. And that meant at certain periods when we had all 7 skeletons in the same scene with the 3 men, I was only able to average about 13 frames a day.
That's less than half a second of film. The painstaking process required him to keep track of every skeleton's position, weapon and timing to match the actor's movements. To maintain continuity, Harryhausen used detailed notes and miniature set markers to ensure the skeleton strikes aligned perfectly with the actor's sword swings. The skeleton army remains the crown jewel of Harryhausen's career. It demonstrated not just technical mastery, but also narrative ingenuity, taking a mythic motif and turning it into a cinematic climax that still resonates more than 60 years later. Indeed, the sequence is still studied in film schools as a master class in stop-motion choreography. Though the skeletons are legendary, Talos earns the top spot for sheer scale and mythic resonance. In Greek legend, Talos was a bronze guardian of Crete, gifted by Zeus to protect Europa. He circled the island 3 times daily, hurling stones at intruders. His single vein of divine ichor was sealed with a bronze nail. When it was removed, he bled to death. In some versions, the sorceress Medea uses spells to drive Talos mad. This causes him to graze his ankle on a sharp rock and dislodge the seal. His demise serves as a metaphor for the fatal vulnerability inherent even in divine or indestructible beings. The film adapts this beautifully, as Jason defeats Talos by draining his ichor, a poetic death as Talos collapses like a felled monument. However, the Greek myth wasn't Harryhausen's only source of inspiration. Talos' size was influenced by the Colossus of Rhodes, a 33-meter statue of the sun god Helios. Here's Harryhausen explaining his thought process.
In the original story of Jason and the Golden Fleece, there was a character in it called Talos, although he was not as large as we depicted him in the picture. He was only 8 feet high. But when I started the design process for the sequence, I felt we could get much more menace if he could be about the size of the Colossus of Rhodes.
The bronze giant comes spectacularly to life when Hercules steals a brooch pin from the treasure trove within the plinth Talos stands on. The moment is pure tension, the absence of music amplifies the dread. The camera lingers on Talos as he slowly turns his head with a metallic groan. Slow, deliberate, and terrifying. The colossal automaton then proceeds to try and punish the intruders that dared steal from the gods themselves. Talos was animated as a large articulated model filmed against miniature landscapes. Harryhausen carefully matched the puppet's movements to live-action footage of actors running across the beautiful sands of Argonauts beach in Palinuro, Italy. Here's a test shot from Harryhausen's scrapbook showing Talos towering over the Argonauts. Meanwhile, the creaking sound design was achieved by manipulating slowed-down recordings of metal stress, giving Talos a weighty mechanical presence. To emphasize the sense of scale, Harryhausen slowed down Talos' movements, while the use of wide low-angle shots further augmented Talos' size, framing him against the horizon like a living monument. Completing the illusion is Bernard Herrmann's score that underpins Talos' menace, with heavy brass and percussion amplifying the sense of unstoppable force. Talos remains one of the most iconic stop-motion creations of the 20th century. For me, he is Harryhausen's undisputed masterpiece by every conceivable metric. Visual design, sound editing, music, lighting, integration with the live action. His awakening sequence is a masterclass in suspense, proving that Harryhausen could make a simple head turn more terrifying than any explosion ever could. Talos embodies the perfect fusion of myth and cinema, a bronze guardian reforged in the imagination of a stop-motion master. And that's my personal ranking of all the creatures in Chasing on the Argonauts, from the shriek of the Harpies to the hiss of the slithering serpent that is the Hydra, from the clash of the skeleton army to the gleam of Talos' bronze armor. Do you have a personal ranking? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching and see you in the next one. Bye for now.